She hid an injured biker from dangerous men without thinking twice. What she didn't know, he was part of a brotherhood that never forgets a debt, and protecting her would change everything. The clock above the grill read 2:47 a.m. when Cassie heard the motorcycle sputter into the gravel parking lot. She'd been wiping down the counter for the third time that hour, fighting sleep, when the engine coughed and died. Through the dusty window of the Desert Rose Diner, she watched a figure stumble off the bike and collapse against the chrome exterior. Cassie dropped her rag and rushed outside. The man was big, leather-clad, and bleeding. A dark stain spread across his left side, soaking through his vest. His face was pale under the parking lot lights, jaw clenched against pain. "Jesus," Cassie whispered, crouching beside him. "What happened?" "Knife," he grunted, pressing his hand against the wound. "Ambush. 5 miles back." His eyes met hers, sharp, gray, and surprisingly clear despite the blood loss. He had the kind of face that had seen too much, scarred knuckles, a crooked nose that had been broken more than once, and a patch on his vest that read Reaper. "I need to call an ambulance." No, his hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Not hard, but firm. "They'll come looking. Just give me a minute." Cassie's heart hammered. She'd worked at the Desert Rose for 3 years, serving truckers and travelers at all hours, but nothing like this had ever walked through her door. "Who's looking?" she asked. Before he could answer, headlights swept across the parking lot. 3 motorcycles roared in, engines growling like hungry wolves. Reaper's eyes went wide. He tried to stand, failed, and slumped back against the wall. "Inside," Cassie said quickly. Now, she didn't know why she helped him. Maybe it was the fear in his eyes, real, human fear that cut through his tough exterior. Maybe it was the instinct that told her whoever was coming was far worse than the bleeding man at her feet. She looped his arm over her shoulder and half-dragged him through the diner's back entrance. He was heavy, all muscle and leather, but adrenaline made her strong. She shoved him into the narrow pantry between bags of flour and canned tomatoes. "Don't make a sound," she whispered. She'd barely closed the pantry door when the front entrance slammed open. 4 men walked in, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. They wore similar vests, but different patches, a coiled snake instead of Reaper's skull. The leader was tall, with a shaved head and a scar that ran from his eyebrow to his jaw. "Evening," he said, though his smile was anything but friendly. Or should I say morning? Cassie forced herself to breathe normally and walked back behind the counter. Her hands wanted to shake. She made them stay steady. "Can I get you boys some coffee?" "We're looking for someone," Scarface said, leaning against the counter. His breath smelled like cigarettes and whiskey. "Big guy, vest with a skull. Rides a black Harley. You seen him?" Cassie looked him straight in the eye. "Haven't seen anyone but truckers all night. It's been dead quiet." One of the other men, shorter, with a spider web tattoo on his neck, walked around the diner, checking the booths. He kicked open the bathroom door, then moved toward the kitchen. "Mind if we look around?" Scarface asked, though it wasn't really a question. "Health code violation," Cassie said quickly. "Can't have unauthorized people in the kitchen. You want coffee or not?" Scarface studied her for a long moment. Cassie felt her pulse in her throat, but kept her expression neutral. Just another tired waitress dealing with difficult customers. Spiderweb pushed open the kitchen door anyway. "Hey," Cassie snapped, letting real anger into her voice. "I said no. You want to call the sheriff? Because I've got his number on speed dial, and he doesn't like bikers much." It was a bluff. Sheriff Morrison was 40 miles away and wouldn't arrive for an hour, even if she did call. But small-town waitresses learned early how to handle trouble with nothing but attitude and guts. Scarface held up a hand, and Spiderweb stopped. "No need for that," he said smoothly. "We're just passing through. Looking for a friend." "Well, your friend isn't here," Cassie said, "and I'm closing in 10 minutes, so—" Another long, tense silence. Cassie could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the distant howl of coyotes outside, and her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Finally, Scarface pushed off the counter. All right, but if you see him, tall guy, bleeding, maybe you give us a call. He slapped the card on the counter. There's a reward for information. Sure thing, Cassie said, not touching the card. The four men filed out, engines roaring back to life. Cassie watched through the window as they circled the parking lot once, headlights sweeping across Reaper's abandoned motorcycle, then roared off into the desert night. She waited 5 full minutes before opening the pantry door. Reaper was slumped against the wall, conscious but barely. The wound had bled through his makeshift bandage, his own torn shirt pressed against his side. "They're gone," Cassie said softly. "You didn't have to do that," he said, his voice rough. "They would have killed you if they knew." "Yeah, well," Cassie grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink. "Guess I'm stupider than I look." She helped him to a booth and cleaned the wound as best she could. It was deep, but not fatal. The knife had missed anything vital. She wrapped it tight with gauze and surgical tape, her hands working with the efficiency of someone who'd patched up her fair share of bar fights and kitchen accidents. "You need a hospital," she said. "I need to disappear," Reaper replied. "Those were the Scorpions. They don't forget. What did you do to them?" "Wrong place, wrong time. Territory dispute." He looked at her with something like wonder. "You just lied to the Scorpions for me. Do you understand what that means?" Cassie sat back, suddenly exhausted. "It means I'm probably an idiot. It means," Reaper said quietly, "you just saved my life. And where I come from, that's a debt that gets paid." Before she could respond, sirens wailed in the distance, probably heading to some other emergency, but Reaper tensed anyway. "I have to go," he said, standing with a grimace. "You can barely walk. I'll manage." He pulled out a worn leather wallet and dropped $200 bills on the table. "For the trouble. And Cassie," he'd seen her name tag, "you won't regret this. I promise." Then he was gone, limping out into the pre-dawn darkness, his motorcycle coughing back to life and disappearing down the empty highway. Cassie locked the door and leaned against it, her whole body trembling now that it was over. She had no idea that she'd just changed her life forever, or that by tomorrow, her quiet little diner would become ground zero for something much bigger than she could possibly imagine. Cassie didn't sleep. She went home at dawn, showered, and stared at the $200 bills on her kitchen table. Blood money, maybe, or gratitude. She couldn't decide which made her feel worse. By 6 a.m., she was back at the diner, preparing for the breakfast rush that never really came. The Desert Rose sat on a lonely stretch of Highway 47, serving maybe 20 customers on a good day. Most mornings, it was just her, the coffee maker, and the endless brown landscape stretching in every direction. She was cracking eggs when she heard the motorcycle. Her stomach dropped. Through the window, she saw him, Reaper, looking somehow worse in daylight. His face was gray, his movement stiff, but he was alive. And he wasn't alone. An older man climbed off a second motorcycle. He was maybe 60, with a gray beard braided down his chest, and the bearing of someone who commanded respect without asking for it. His vest was covered in patches, and on his chest, in bold letters, President. Cassie's hands froze on the spatula. They walked in, and Reaper moved like every step hurt. The older man held the door, watching his companion with obvious concern. "Coffee?" Cassie asked, defaulting to waitress mode because she didn't know what else to do. "Please," the president said. His voice was surprisingly gentle. "And whatever's good for breakfast. We're buying." She poured 2 cups with shaking hands and slid them across the counter. Reaper caught her eye and nodded, a small gesture that somehow conveyed more than words could. "Name's Hawk," the president said. "I lead the Iron Wolves MC, and I believe you've met Reaper." "Sort of," Cassie said carefully. "He told me what you did." Hawk's eyes were blue and sharp, studying her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. "Told me you hit him. Lied to the Scorpions. Patch him up. Asked for nothing." "I didn't really think about it," Cassie admitted. "That's what makes it remarkable." Hawk sipped his coffee. "Most people think plenty when the Scorpions come asking questions. They think about their own skin. You thought about a stranger bleeding in your parking lot." Reaper shifted uncomfortably. I tried to tell him it wasn't necessary. It's absolutely necessary, Hawk interrupted, his voice firm. The wolves pay their debts. Always. Cassie set down 2 plates of eggs, bacon, and toast. Look, I appreciate the thanks, but I really don't need. You need protection, Hawk said bluntly. The scorpions aren't stupid. They'll figure out eventually that Reaper stopped here. And when they do, they'll come back. A chill ran down Cassie's spine. She'd been trying not to think about that. What am I supposed to do? She asked quietly. I can't just leave. This diner is all I have. I worked here for 3 years, saved every penny. My boss is about to sell it to me next month. This is my future. Hawk and Reaper exchanged a glance. Then we make sure you have a future, Hawk said simply. He reached into his vest and pulled out a card, black, with a silver wolf emblem and a phone number. You call this number if anything happens. Anything. Someone looks at you wrong, you call. Understand? Cassie took the card with numb fingers. I don't understand any of this. Reaper finally spoke, his voice rough. In our world, there's a code. You protect your own. You honor debts. You don't forget when someone risks everything for nothing. He met her eyes. You're not a wolf, Cassie. But as of last night, you're Pack. And we protect Pack. I don't want anyone getting hurt because of me, she said. Too late for that, Hawk said, but not unkindly. The Scorpions drew first blood when they ambushed Reaper in neutral territory. This war was coming with or without you. You just picked a side without knowing it. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Cassie refilled their coffee, her mind racing. This was insane. She was a waitress from nowhere, daughter of a mechanic and a school teacher, whose biggest drama before this was whether her ex-boyfriend would stop drunk texting her. Now she was apparently Pack to a motorcycle club. What happens next? She asked. Next, Hawk said, standing and dropping $100 bill on the counter for a $20 meal. You go about your life. We'll keep eyes on this place. You won't see us, but we'll be watching. And tomorrow, he smiled, and it transformed his weathered face. Tomorrow, you're going to get a surprise. A thank you from the whole club. I really don't need. Not for you, Reaper said, standing with a wince. For us. Let's do this. They left before she could argue, engines rumbling away into the morning sun. Cassie picked up the $100 bill and laughed, a slightly hysterical sound that echoed in the empty diner. What had she gotten herself into? She had no idea that in less than 24 hours, the answer would arrive with the roar of 500 engines. And her quiet life would explode into something she never saw coming. Cassie heard them before she saw them. It started as a distant rumble, like thunder rolling across the desert. She was wiping down tables at 11 a.m. when the sound grew louder, deeper, vibrating through the floorboards of the diner. Old Pete, a regular trucker nursing his third coffee, looked up. What the hell? Cassie walked to the window and felt her heart stop. The highway was black with motorcycles. They came in formation, a river of chrome and leather stretching as far as she could see. Hundreds of them. The roar was deafening now, a wall of sound that made the diner's windows rattle. Every bike bore the same patch, the Silver Wolf of the Iron Wolves MC. Oh my God, Cassie whispered. They filled the parking lot first, then spilled onto the shoulder of the highway, engines cutting off in a coordinated wave. The silence that followed was somehow louder than the noise had been. Cassie stood frozen as 500 bikers dismounted and turned to face the diner. Hawk stood at the front, Reaper beside him. Behind them, men and women of all ages, some young and dangerous looking, others gray-haired and grandfatherly, united by leather and loyalty. Pete scrambled out the back door. I'm not here for whatever this is. But Cassie couldn't move. She watched through the window as Hawk raised his hand, and the entire crowd fell silent. He walked forward alone, pushed open the door, and smiled at her shocked face. Morning, Cassie. Hope you've got enough coffee. What? What is this? She managed. This, Hawk said, gesturing to the army behind him, is a thank you. Word spread about what you did. Every wolf within 500 miles wanted to meet the waitress brave enough to stand up to the scorpions. You brought 500 people to my diner. 512, actually, Reaper said, stepping inside. He moved better today, the wound clearly healing. We called ahead to the other chapters. Told them the story. They wanted to come. But I can't serve 500 people. I don't have enough. We brought our own, a woman's voice said. She stepped forward, perhaps 50, with kind eyes and graying blonde hair. I'm Sarah, Hawk's old lady. We've got coolers full of burgers, hot dogs, drinks. We just need your grill and your blessing. Cassie looked around her tiny diner. 8 booths, a counter with 12 stools, and a kitchen built for maybe 30 customers a day. This was impossible. Why? She asked quietly. Why go through all this trouble for me? Hawk's expression grew serious. Because what you did matters. In a world where most people look the other way, where fear wins more often than courage, you did something rare. You saw a human being who needed help, and you helped. No questions, no hesitation. That deserves recognition. Also, Reaper added with a slight smile, we wanted to make a statement. The scorpions need to see that you're not alone. That touching you means going through all of us. A chill ran through Cassie, but it wasn't entirely fear. Something else stirred, a strange sense of belonging she'd never felt before. Okay, she said, surprising herself. Let's do this. What followed was the most surreal day of Cassie's life. The bikers were respectful, almost courtly. They took turns coming inside in small groups, ordering coffee and pie, paying with large bills, and telling her to keep the change. Outside, the parking lot transformed into a massive cookout. Grills appeared, music played, and laughter filled the desert air. Children chased each other between the bikes. Old-timers told stories. Young couples danced to classic rock blaring from someone's speaker. Cassie worked alongside Sarah and 3 other women, serving coffee and slicing pies until her feet ached. But every time she looked up, someone was there with a smile, a thank you, or a story about why loyalty mattered to them. My dad was a wolf, one young man told her. He taught me that honor isn't old-fashioned. It's everything. I was homeless once, an older woman said softly. The wolves gave me a family when I had nothing. We don't forget kindness. As the sun began to set, Hawk gathered everyone together. The crowd fell silent again. 500 faces turned toward the diner. Cassie, Hawk called. Come out here. She walked outside on trembling legs. Hawk handed her an envelope. This is from all of us. Should cover your mortgage on this place, plus some extra for repairs. Cassie opened it and nearly dropped it. $50,000 in cashier's checks. I can't accept. You can, and you will, Hawk said firmly. And there's something else. As of today, the Desert Rose Diner is under the protection of the Iron Wolves MC. That means no one, and I mean no one, messes with you, your business, or your people. Your family now. The crowd erupted in cheers, engines revving in celebration. Cassie felt tears on her cheeks. She'd spent years feeling invisible, serving people who barely saw her. Now, surrounded by 500 bikers, she felt seen, valued, protected. But in the desert hills beyond, hidden binoculars watched the celebration. And the scorpions began planning their revenge. The first sign came 3 days later. Cassie walked out to her car after closing and found all 4 tires slashed, rubber gaping like wounds in the parking lot lights. Her hand shook as she called the number on Hawk's card. He arrived with Reaper and 2 others within 20 minutes. Scorpions, Reaper said, crouching by the tires. He pointed to a small symbol scratched into her driver's side door, a snake with its fangs bared. Their calling card. They're testing us, Hawk said, his voice tight with anger. Seeing how we respond, Cassie wrapped her arms around herself. Maybe I should just apologize to them? Explain it was a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, one of the other bikers said. His name was Tank, and he looked like his nickname. They know exactly what happened. This is about territory and pride now. They replaced her tires that night, and two wolves started taking shifts watching the diner from a distance. Cassie tried to feel safer, but the violation left her jumpy, checking over her shoulder constantly. A week later, she arrived at work to find the diner's front window painted with red graffiti, "Snitch." Her boss, Danny, a nervous man in his 60s who'd owned the Desert Rose for 30 years, was already there, staring at the damage. "Cassie, we need to talk," he said. They sat in a booth while she explained everything. The bikers, the scorpions, the protection deal. Danny listened with growing concern. "I want to sell you this place. You know I do," he said carefully. "But I can't have gang wars in my parking lot. The insurance alone." "Danny, please." "I'm not saying no," he interrupted. "I'm saying maybe you should stay away for a while. Let things cool down. I'll run the diner for a few weeks." Cassie felt something crack inside her. "This is my dream. I've worked double shifts for 3 years to save for the down payment. You're really going to take it away because I helped someone?" "I'm trying to protect you," Danny said, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. "And honestly, protect myself. These people are dangerous." She left before she said something she'd regret. That night, Cassie sat in her small rental house, staring at Hawk's card. Pride warred with practicality. She didn't want to be someone who needed protecting, who brought trouble everywhere she went. But she also couldn't shake the memory of Reaper bleeding in her parking lot, the fear in his eyes when the scorpions arrived. She'd made her choice then. The consequences were hers to bear. The knock on her door came at midnight. Cassie froze, grabbed her phone, finger hovering over Hawk's number. The knock came again, softer this time. "Cassie? It's Reaper. I'm alone." She opened the door with the chain still on. He stood on her porch, hands visible, looking tired. "What are you doing here?" "Hawk's got me staying close. Making sure you're okay." He gestured to a motorcycle parked down the street. "I saw your lights on. Figured you weren't sleeping either." She unlatched the chain and let him in. He filled her small living room, all leather and road dust. "Danny wants me to stay away from the diner," she said, collapsing onto her couch. "Says it's too dangerous. Maybe he's right. Maybe I should just disappear for a while." Reaper sat carefully in her armchair. "That what you want?" "I don't know what I want anymore," she laughed bitterly. "A week ago, my biggest problem was whether I could afford new uniforms. Now I'm caught in the middle of a gang war." "You're not in the middle," Reaper said quietly. "You're under our protection. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because it feels like I traded one dangerous situation for another." Reaper was silent for a moment. Then he leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "When I was 17, I watched my little sister get hit by a drunk driver. 15 cars passed by before someone stopped to help. 15. People saw her bleeding on the pavement and kept driving because they didn't want to get involved." His voice was flat, emotionless. "The woman who finally stopped was a nurse. She saved my sister's life. And I swore that day I'd never be one of those 15 people who looked away." Cassie felt tears prick her eyes. "You didn't look away," Reaper continued, "when it would have been easier, safer, smarter to pretend you didn't see me. That's rare, Cassie. That matters. Even if it costs me everything." "It won't," he said with certainty, "because we don't abandon our own. Ever." He stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Keep your phone close. Anything weird happens, strange cars, hang-up calls, anything, you call immediately." After he left, Cassie found a note under her windshield wiper the next morning. "Last warning. Walk away or pay." She called Hawk's number with shaking hands. "They left another note," she said when he answered. "Then it's time we had a conversation with them." Hawk replied, his voice steel. "Pack a bag, Cassie. You're staying at the clubhouse until this is settled." "I'm not running." "You're not running. You're strategizing. There's a difference." As Cassie threw clothes into a duffel bag, she didn't notice the car parked 3 houses down, engine idling, watching her every move. The clubhouse was not what Cassie expected. She'd imagined something dark and dangerous, but the Iron Wolves compound was surprisingly domestic. A large ranch-style building surrounded by smaller cabins, with a garage, a fire pit, and even a vegetable garden. Kids' bikes leaned against one porch. We're not all outlaws, Sarah said, showing Cassie to a spare room. Most of us have regular jobs. Mechanics, teachers, nurses. The club is family, not crime. Cassie stayed 3 days, helping in the kitchen, learning names, hearing stories. These people weren't monsters. They were broken pieces that had found each other and built something whole. On the 4th night, Hawk called a meeting. Cassie sat in the main room, surrounded by 30 wolves, the core members who lived locally. Maps covered the table, marked with territories and routes. The Scorpions are getting bold, Hawk said, pointing to red marks on the map. They've been spotted near the diner twice, circling Cassie's house, even following some of our members. They're building towards something. Let me go talk to their president, Tank suggested. Neutral ground. End this before it gets worse. They don't want talk, Reaper said. They want blood. I killed 2 of their guys when they ambushed me. They won't forget that. Cassie's stomach dropped. You never told me that part. Didn't seem relevant, Reaper said. It was self-defense. But to them, it's a debt that needs paying. So, I'm just collateral damage in your war? Cassie felt anger rising. A pawn you're using to make a point. The room fell silent. Hawk's voice was measured. You think we'd put you in danger for pride? Cassie, the Scorpions would have come after you whether we claimed you or not. The moment you hid Reaper, you became a target. We're the only thing standing between you and them. Then maybe I should just face them myself, Cassie said. Explain I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not part of this. They'll kill you, Reaper said flatly. Is that what you want? Before Cassie could answer, her phone buzzed. Danny's name flashed on the screen. Cassie, where are you? His voice was panicked. The diner, they burned it. Someone set fire to the kitchen. It's gone. The phone slipped from her hands. Reaper caught it, listened, then hung up. We need to move. Now, they arrived at the desert rose to find it gutted. Fire trucks were still spraying water on the smoldering remains. The roof had collapsed, windows blown out, her dream reduced to charred wood and ash. Cassie stood in the parking lot, numb. Danny rushed over, soot-stained and shaking. Thank God you weren't here. They came around midnight, 3 guys with gasoline. The fire department said if I hadn't been sleeping in the back office, the whole building would have been destroyed. As it is, he gestured helplessly at the ruins. I'm sorry, Cassie whispered. I'm so sorry. This isn't your fault, Danny said, but his eyes said otherwise. Insurance will cover most of it, but Cassie, I can't sell you a burned building. The deal's off. Each word was a knife. 3 years of work, of dreams, of believing she could build something that mattered. Gone in one night. Hawk spoke quietly with the fire marshal while Reaper stood beside Cassie, a solid presence in her crumbling world. We'll rebuild it, he said. With what? I don't have insurance on the business, Danny does. And he's not selling anymore. Then we'll buy it from him. The club will. I don't want charity. Cassie snapped. I wanted to earn this myself. I wanted to prove I could make something of my life without handouts or help or... Her voice broke. Reaper grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. This isn't charity. This is war, and you're going to survive it. That's when the headlights appeared. 5 motorcycles roared into the parking lot. Scorpions, led by the scarred man from that first night. Venom, Cassie had learned his name was. Hawk's wolves immediately formed a protective circle around Cassie, hands moving to concealed weapons. Venom cut his engine and smiled. Nice night for a barbecue. You're on neutral ground, Hawk called out. Fire department's still here. Cops are coming. You really want to do this now? Just wanted to deliver a message, Venom said, eyes finding Cassie through the crowd. This stops when she stops. When the pretty waitress admits she made a mistake and begs forgiveness. On her knees. In public. Rage flooded through Cassie, hot and clarifying. She pushed through the protective circle before anyone could stop her, walking straight toward Venom. Reaper cursed and followed, but she was faster, fueled by fury. You want me on my knees? She said, voice shaking but loud. You burned my diner, threatened my life, destroyed 3 years of work. Because your ego can't handle that I saved someone's life? Venom's smile widened. Because you chose wrong, sweetheart. And now you pay. Then come for me, Cassie said. Stop hiding behind threats and fires. Face me directly. Or are you too scared? The silence was absolute. Then Venom laughed, a cold, ugly sound. Careful what you wish for. He revved his engine and the scorpions roared away, leaving only smoke and a promise of violence. Reaper grabbed Cassie's arm. Are you insane? You just challenged them. Good, Cassie said, and she meant it. I'm done being scared. The clubhouse was in chaos when they returned. Wolves paced, argued, cleaned weapons. The air crackled with barely contained violence. Cassie sat in the corner, watching men and women prepare for war because of her words. You shouldn't have provoked them, Tank said, though his tone wasn't unkind. Venom doesn't make idle threats. Neither do I, Cassie replied quietly. Hawk called for silence. Everyone calm down. We need strategy, not rage. Strategy? A younger wolf named Dice slammed his fist on the table. They burnt her diner. They're calling us out. We hit back, hard, or we look weak. And if we hit back, people die, Sarah said. Maybe some of us. Maybe innocent bystanders. Is that what we want? The room erupted in argument again. Cassie watched Hawk try to regain control, saw the frustration in his eyes. These people were loyal, fierce, but they were also angry and scared. Fear made people stupid. Stop, Cassie said. No one heard her. Stop, she shouted, standing. The room fell silent, everyone turning to stare at the waitress who'd somehow become the center of their world. Cassie's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. You're going about this wrong. With all due respect, Tank said, you don't know how club business works. I know how bullies work, Cassie interrupted. I spent years serving truckers who thought waitresses were punching bags. I know how to handle men who think intimidation equals power. She turned to Hawk. Can I see those maps? Hawk hesitated, then spread them across the table. Cassie studied the marked territories, scorpion hangouts, known routes, neutral zones. They're expecting retaliation, right? A direct attack. That's how this works, Reaper said. They hit us, we hit back harder. What if we don't? Cassie traced a finger along the highway. What if instead of fighting, we expose them? Expose them how? Hawk asked, interest sparking his eyes. The fire at the diner. That's arson. A felony. The sheriff might not care about gang disputes, but he cares about fires that could spread to other businesses. She looked up. What if we gave him proof? Cameras, witnesses, evidence that forces him to act. We don't involve cops, Dice said immediately. That's the code. The code is getting Cassie killed, Sarah said thoughtfully. I like where she's going. Keep talking. Cassie's mind raced, pieces falling into place. The scorpions are sloppy. They threaten me in front of fire marshals and Danny. They've been circling my house in broad daylight. They're so confident they can't be touched. They're making mistakes. So we document everything, Hawk said slowly. Build a case. Not just document. We bait them. Cassie's voice grew stronger. They want me? Let them think they can get me. Set up cameras, have witnesses ready, and when they make their move, we have everything we need to bury them legally. That puts you in danger, Reaper said immediately. I'm already in danger. At least this way, we control it. Hawk studied her with new respect. You're talking about a trap, using yourself as bait. I'm talking about ending this without a bloodbath, Cassie said. Isn't that better? The room was silent. Then Sarah spoke up. I like it. We've been so focused on violence, we forgot there are other ways to fight. It's risky, Tank admitted, but it could work. Reaper shook his head. And if something goes wrong? If they grab her before we can intervene, then you do what you do best, Cassie said, meeting his eyes. You protect your own, but I'm betting they'll be too cocky to see it coming. Venom thinks I'm just a scared waitress. Let's use that. Hawk was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, wolfish and proud. All right, we do this your way, but with modifications. We set up multiple fallback positions, have teams ready to move in seconds. Nothing happens without full coverage. Over the next 3 hours, they planned. Sarah suggested using her legal contacts to ensure everything was done properly. Tank volunteered to set up cameras. Reaper insisted on being Cassie's primary shadow, with 2 others as backup. We rebuild the diner too, Hawk said. Start tomorrow. Make it obvious we're not scared. That draws them out faster. And we leak information, Cassie added. Let word spread that I'm going back to work. That I'm alone sometimes. Make it tempting. You're good at this, Sarah said with a grin. Ever considered becoming a wolf? Cassie laughed, surprising herself. Let's survive first. As the meeting broke up, Reaper pulled Cassie aside. This is dangerous, he said quietly. You understand that? One mistake, and you're dead. I understand, she met his intense gaze. But I'm not running anymore. They took my diner, my dream, my peace. I'm taking it back. Something shifted in Reaper's expression. Respect, maybe, or something deeper. You're braver than most men I know. Or stupider, Cassie said. Still haven't decided which. Outside, the sun was rising over the compound. Wolves were already moving, gathering equipment, making calls. An army mobilizing. But this time, led by a waitress with nothing left to lose. And in a bar 15 miles away, Venom was planning his final move, certain that the scared little woman would be easy prey. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The reconstruction of the desert rose took 5 days. Wolves worked around the clock. Carpenters, electricians, painters. The diner rose from the ashes, better than before. New counters, updated kitchen, reinforced doors. And hidden throughout, 12 cameras, panic buttons, and reinforced safe spots. Cassie returned to work on a Friday evening, just as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. Word had spread, just as they'd planned. The Scorpions knew she was back. Alone. Vulnerable. Except she wasn't alone. Reaper sat in a truck across the highway, watching through binoculars. Tank and 3 others were positioned in the desert hills with clear sight lines. Sarah waited 2 miles away with Sheriff Morrison, finally convinced to take the threat seriously after seeing the arson evidence. Inside the diner, Cassie wiped down counters and tried to keep her hand from shaking. The first customers were genuine, an elderly couple, 2 truckers, normal people looking for coffee and pie. Cassie served them with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, aware of every camera recording, every shadow outside. At 6:47 p.m., the Scorpions arrived. 8 motorcycles, more than expected. They filled the parking lot, engines idling, deliberately intimidating. Venom dismounted first, flanked by Spiderweb and 6 others Cassie didn't recognize. Her phone buzzed. Reaper's text. We see them. Stay calm. Sheriff's 10 minutes out. 10 minutes. An eternity. The elderly couple hurried out the back. The truckers looked nervous but stayed, sensing something bad was coming. Venom pushed open the door and the temperature dropped. Evening. Cassie, he said pleasantly. Heard you reopened. Thought we'd come celebrate. We're closing early tonight, Cassie said, keeping her voice steady. You'll have to come back tomorrow. Oh, I don't think so. Venom walked to the counter, his men fanning out. One locked the front door. Another pulled down the blinds. We've got unfinished business. The truckers stood. Lady, you want us to call someone? They're leaving, Venom said, pulling a gun and setting it on the counter. Not pointing it, just present. Now, the truckers fled out the back. Cassie was alone with 8 Scorpions and a gun. You know what I like about you? Venom said conversationally. You've got guts. Stupid, but guts. Walking back in here after we burn it down? That takes balls. What do you want? Cassie asked. Well, I've always wanted. Respect. See, you disrespected us when you hid that piece of trash, Reaper. Then you disrespected us again by getting cozy with the wolves. And then, he laughed, then you had the nerve to challenge me in front of my men. So you're here to kill me over your hurt feelings? Venom's smile vanished. I'm here to send a message. You on your knees, begging. Filmed and posted. Then maybe we let you live. Cassie's phone buzzed again. She glanced down. Sheriff, 5 minutes. Keep him talking. And if I refuse? She asked. Then we burn this place down again. With you in it." Venom gestured to his men. Two produced gasoline cans. Cassie felt ice in her veins. This was the moment. The trap was set, but 5 minutes was too long. She needed to stall. "You know what your problem is, Venom," she said, surprising herself with her calm. "You think violence makes you powerful. But real power? That's knowing when to walk away." "Philosophy from a waitress," Venom sneered. "How precious. Not philosophy. Experience. I've served men like you my whole life. Bullies who compensate for being small inside by making others feel smaller." She stepped back from the counter, hands visible. "You've already lost. You just don't know it yet." Venom's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" Outside, gravel crunched. Multiple engines. Venom spun toward the window. Through a gap in the blinds, headlights appeared. Lots of them. The wolves had arrived early. "You set us up," Venom hissed, grabbing his gun. "You set yourself up," Cassie said. "Every threat, every crime, all recorded. The sheriff's on his way with warrants. You can shoot me, but you'll go down for it." Venom raised the gun, pointing it at Cassie's chest. "Then I guess you're coming with." The back door exploded inward. Reaper came through like a hurricane, hitting Spiderweb before anyone could react. Tank and 4 others poured in behind him. The diner erupted into chaos. Fists, shouts, bodies crashing into tables. Cassie dubbed behind the counter as a gunshot rang out, shattering the new window she'd just installed. Venom was running for the front door, but Hawk stepped through it, calm and immovable. Going somewhere. Outside, sirens wailed. Sheriff Morrison's car screamed into the parking lot, lights blazing. The remaining Scorpions who'd stayed outside were already on the ground, hands behind their heads, surrounded by armed deputies. Inside, it was over in seconds. The wolves had trained for this, controlled, efficient, stopping threats without killing. Venom found himself on his knees, Reaper's boot on his back, hands zip-tied. Sheriff Morrison entered, taking in the scene. "Someone want to explain?" Cassie stood on shaking legs. "It's all on camera, Sheriff. Breaking and entering, terroristic threats, attempted arson, assault with a deadly weapon. Everything you need." Morrison looked at the cameras, then at Venom. "Well, looks like you boys are going away for a long time." As they hauled the Scorpions out, Venom locked eyes with Cassie. "This isn't over." "Yeah," Cassie said quietly. "It is." 3 weeks later, the Desert Rose reopened for the 3rd time. The bullet hole in the window had been repaired. The tables replaced. But something had changed, something deeper than wood and glass. A small silver plaque hung by the register. "In honor of courage and loyalty, the Iron Wolves MC." And etched discreetly into the new concrete foundation, visible only if you knew where to look. A wolf's paw print, permanent and protective. Cassie poured coffee for her morning regulars, but the faces were different now. Locals who'd heard the story. Travelers who'd seen the news coverage. The diner had become something more than a roadside stop. It had become a symbol. "Is it true you faced down 8 gang members alone?" a young woman asked, eyes wide. "Not alone," Cassie corrected gently. "I had family watching my back." The word felt right now. Family. Danny had sold her the diner after all, at a price she could actually afford, moved by guilt and the Iron Wolves' gentle persuasion. The insurance money combined with the club's loan, which Hawk refused to let her pay back, meant she owned it free and clear. Her dream, rebuilt from ashes. The door chimed, and Cassie looked up to see Reaper walking in. He'd been scarce since the arrest, healing from cracked ribs courtesy of the fight. But he looked better now, stronger. "Coffee?" she asked. "And whatever pie is good today." She sliced him apple pie, his favorite she'd learned, and slid it across the counter. They developed an easy rhythm over the past weeks. Not quite friendship, not quite something more. Something undefined but solid. "Heard the sentencing came through," Reaper said. 15 years for Venom. The others got less, but enough. Cassie refilled his cup. The Scorpion's lawyer tried to claim entrapment, but the judge wasn't buying it. Good. Reaper ate in silence for a moment. You know there's still scorpions out there. Other chapters. They might come looking for payback. Let them, Cassie said, and meant it. I'm not scared anymore. That was the truth she discovered in the flames and chaos. Fear had controlled her whole life. Fear of failure, of being nobody, of taking up space. The scorpions had tried to use that fear as a weapon. But fear burns away, and what's left is stronger. The club's moving on, Reaper said quietly. Hawk thinks the territory's secure now. Most of us are heading to different chapters, spreading out again. Cassie's heart sank, though she tried not to show it. You're leaving? My charter's in Nevada. Been away too long. He met her eyes. But I wanted to say goodbye properly. And thank you. I should be thanking you. You saved my life. No, Reaper said firmly. You saved mine first. In every way that matters. You reminded me why we do this, why the code exists. It's not about territory or pride. It's about protecting people who do the right thing, even when it's hard. The door opened again, and Hawk walked in with Sarah. Behind them, a dozen more wolves filed in. Familiar faces Cassie had come to know. They filled the booths, the counter bringing warmth and noise and life. Couldn't leave without a proper goodbye, Hawk said, grinning. Plus, Sarah wanted one more piece of your pie. It's the best in 3 states, Sarah declared, hugging Cassie tight. You take care of yourself, honey, and you call if you need anything. Anything. They stayed for hours, telling stories, laughing, making the diner feel alive in ways it never had before. Cassie moved among them, refilling cups, joining conversations, feeling the bittersweet ache of family about to scatter. As sunset painted the desert gold, they began to leave. One by one, engines roared to life. Cassie stood in the doorway, watching them prepare to ride off into different directions, different lives. Reaper was last. He paused beside his bike, then walked back to her. You're going to do great things with this place, he said. I can feel it. It's just a diner, Cassie said, though her voice caught. It's not, though. Not anymore. He pulled something from his pocket, a patch with a wolf emblem. You're not a member. Never will be officially. But this means you're pack. Forever. Any wolf sees this. They'll know who you are. What you did. Cassie took the patch with trembling fingers. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, Reaper smiled. A real, warm smile she'd rarely seen. Just keep being you. The woman brave enough to save a stranger. That's all the world needs. He kissed her forehead, gentle and brief, then mounted his bike. The wolves departed in formation, a river of chrome and leather flowing away into the desert evening. Cassie watched until the last taillight disappeared, the rumble fading to silence. She turned back to her diner, her dream made real through fire and courage and unexpected family. A car pulled up, tourists looking for dinner. Then a trucker. Then a family with kids who'd heard the story and wanted to meet the diner angel, the nickname reporters had given her after the trial. Cassie smiled and welcomed them all. The Desert Rose was open for business, and this time nothing would close it down. Above the register, catching the last rays of sunset, the silver plaque gleamed, a promise kept, a debt honored, and a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is help a stranger in the dark. Even if it changes your life forever. Especially if it changes your life forever.